Liburd to bring his opening remarks, and then we will hear from our Deputy Prime Minister. After that, we will open the lines for questions. We ask our callers to limit themselves so that others can have an opportunity. In any event, we ask the callers to be disciplined, no more than 2 calls, and then you could wait for a second turn, allowing others who are on the lines an opportunity to get their calls through. Thank you, Minister Liburd.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister and Chairperson. I want to first say a very pleasant night to all who are listening to this broadcast by whatever means, social media, radio, internet. I want in the process as well to thank Almighty God for giving me or blessing me with the opportunity to be able to, on another occasion, account for my stewardship as a servant of the people. The Ministry of Health continues to carefully find the balance between maintaining a sustainable suppression of transmission of the virus whilst ensuring the resumption of some parts of the economic and social life. And these are the words of the indomitable Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel Laws, that I want to use as my point of departure for tonight. It may be early yet, but it is difficult, no doubt, for any economist because it may take some time. It may take maybe years before the full extent of the economic blow from COVID-19 can be estimated with any confidence. This health crisis has the potential to endanger social, economic, and political stability throughout the global economy, and we cannot lose sight of the fact that we here in St. Kitts and Nevis are part of the global village. Yes. To put my brief presentation into its proper context, I therefore find it imperative to remind us all that although we had no confirmed cases of COVID-19, but rather to help to control the spread of the virus, we as a reasonable cabinet, or as a responsible cabinet, I should say, heeded the advice of the medical and health professionals, or public health professionals of St. Kitts Nevis, and took decisive action to protect our borders, our citizens, our residents, and with effect from March 25, 2020, at 11:59 p.m., we closed our borders to all inbound commercial airline passenger flights. Yes. Just before that, the Cruise Lines International Association, CLIA, or CLIA, announced the suspension of operations to and from U.S. ports for 30 days due to the unprecedented situation of the coronavirus pandemic. For your information, CLIA represents most of the major cruise lines, including Disney, Carnival, Princess Cruises, Norwegian, and Royal Caribbean. As a matter of fact, I recall that prior to that announcement by our cruise line partners, we as a cabinet took the decision not to grant pratique to a cruise vessel which had on board some 650 Italian passengers. International air cargo and cargo by sea is still being allowed entry into our sovereign borders as we speak. And this is in order to maintain the connectivity that enables us to import much needed commodities such as food, fuel, medical supplies, and equipment. So in concert with the world, we here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis are adjusting to the new norm that is taking place as a consequence of a shared global effort to control the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. Because as a collective, as a cabinet, during these unprecedented times, our first priority is to protect the health and safety of all our citizens, residents, and visitors alike. The global economy is moving into a prolonged shutdown, and it is becoming increasingly clear that the world is facing a drop in output unprecedented in its breadth and in its intensity. Some analysts predict that the growing economic disruptions are the initial signs of an economic collapse that can be worse than the global financial crisis of 2007 to 2009. But life must go on during and after the shutdown. The government of New Zealand, for example, is looking to fund what it calls large shovel-ready infrastructure projects so as to boost the economy after the COVID-19 lockdown. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we do have some ongoing projects, and contractors have been granted permission by Commissioner of Police Hilroy Brandy to resume work during the partial curfew days once they comply with the NEOC COVID-19 health protocols. And these projects include Phase 2 of the Island Main Road Resurfacing Project. Recall that's a $69 million project. And it engages over 20 truckers at this moment when the work resumes, and some 45 workers. Remember as well, we introduced a special component called the local component, whereby we engage our local subcontractors to do work on the drainage and sidewalks. And at this phase, there are some 9 local subcontractors, and an average of some 72 workers are engaged. The Old Road Fisheries Project, that's a breakwater project, a project costing the government some $6.8 million, is about to resume. And there's some 3,000 tons of 10-ton rocks to be moved for the armoring of that project down there in Old Road. And that tells me, if my mathematics is accurate, that a truck that moves, and most trucks move 10-ton rocks, which means that there's some 300 trips for truckers on this project, to be engaged on this project. The Old Road Bay Rehabilitation Project as well. There are 2-ton rocks, 10-ton rocks, and 20-ton rocks to be moved for that project. As the quarry mining continues for the Old Road Bay Fisheries Project and the Old Road Bay Rehabilitation Project, this costs some $6.8 million. So although the construction industry has not returned to normalcy, and that perhaps may take time given the current risk, our ministry sought to resume work on these projects to help to reduce the economic impact of the lockdown here in St. Kitts and Nevis. In addition, there are also some infrastructure, or to be more specific, village roads improvement projects that are, as I said before, shovel-ready. By that I mean they are all at a stage where workers can now be employed and construction can begin. I speak of the construction of the roads at Harry Phipps and Godwin Gut, which can commence anytime now, and the value of this project, I am advised, is approximately $1.6 million. I intend to submit to the Cabinet, having briefed the Prime Minister yesterday, what I call the COVID-19 Emergency Village Roads Infrastructure Stimulus. Roads in Keys South, for example, estimated at $1.4 million to construct, can be split among some 4 subcontractors from the area to carry on our approach to ensuring we engage local contractors, using the same concept as we have on the Island Main Road project. The concept I discussed with Director of Public Works, Kwame Williams, who concurred that the Public Works Department engineers can design, layout, then subcontract to private operators for the cutting, grading, and filling of the roads. When this is done, the concrete works can be subcontracted to a small contractor from the particular area or village and supervised by the engineers. So just imagine some 4 contractors earning an approximately $350,000 and employing from the area in Keys of some 32 workers. This concept of my ministry, as I said, the COVID-19 Emergency Village Roads Infrastructure Stimulus, should be duplicated in Sandy Point in 1 or 2 areas. My colleague and Deputy Prime Minister gave me areas like Rowland Hill, Upper Romney, or Farm Housing Meadows. Before one, though, my deputy and colleague, that Crabhill Heights is a big one. As part of the COVID-19 Emergency Village Roads Infrastructure Stimulus, we can complete the road in Garvey's development, also those roads in the upper part of Shadwell. While in Constituency 3, I recall the last time I was here on Leadership Matters, a lady called about the water sitting on the rail in Boys, and I'm happy to report that the Public Works Department has found an engineering solution to dispose of that water, which settles behind the Bronte Welch Primary School at a cost of approximately $60,000. I must make the point, though, before I move on from the subject of public infrastructure, and in particular roads. In this country, there are over 110 miles stretch of roads here in St. Kitts. And if you take away the 31 or 32 miles for the Island Main Road, then you're left with over 80 miles stretch of secondary roads in Bastia and the villages all around the country. They take money to repair them. In many cases, we recall on entering into office, there were some 70 areas that had not one single road, dirt roads. When we did the estimates just for 25, it was costing over some $69 million. Imagine the remaining 70. In the transportation sector, if I can move to that sector, there are 3 branches, as I know it, of transport, to wit, air transport, maritime or sea transport, and land or public transport. It was an economist who provided the definition of transport that I always remember, which states that it is the art of moving goods and or services from an area of demand to an area of supply. It stands to reason thus that transport is a derived demand. Demand for cargo ships and air cargo. Demand for ferry services as people move from St. Kitts to and from Nevis. The demand for commuter buses for those who come from DFP via Keon to Basseterre or DFP via Old Road to Basseterre. A demand for taxis when our cruise ships return. So within a similar structure and system as outlined earlier, work has resumed on partial curfew days, again with the permission of Commissioner Brandy, as we strive to complete projects like the R.L. Bradshaw International Airport Taxiway, upland works at Port Zante, and importantly as well, the West Bus Line Terminal. There are also some transport-related projects that are shovel-ready and at a stage where workers can now be employed and construction will begin. I make reference to phase 2 of the traffic signals or traffic lights in Bastille. The equipment are here, but because of the shutdown, the engineers could not be here. We hope that situation will change in the near future. The tender evaluation report for the construction of phase 3 of the East Bus Line terminal, which will see the construction of shops, restaurants, and a pharmacy, was received by the ministry, and this construction cost will be at $2.6 million. Finally, I want to address the public transport sector, which has been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Ministry of Transport continues to work with bus and taxi operators in both St. Kitts and Nevis with a view towards helping them during this difficult period. The Prime Minister alluded briefly to the Transport Board. The Transport Board comprises of members of both taxi associations, and we have also included the President of the Taxi Co-op, the Bus Line Association presidents, the Commissioner of Police's representative, and an officer from Nevis, also representatives, beg your pardon, from the Ministry of Tourism, to name a few. As our federal government's response continues to develop, we are aware that businesses are facing significant challenges and are in need of assistance to survive. We have made recommendations which are to be considered by the Cabinet. These proposals came out of a meeting we convened with the the Traffic Safety, I should say, the Traffic Safety and Public Service Drivers Board, to be correct. One, that a compassionate grant be provided as relief for loss of income in these difficult and unprecedented times for those bona fide or full-time bus and taxi operators who are not regarded as insured persons by Social Security. Two, that efforts to encourage and provide for the registration of all bona fide or full-time bus and taxi operators post-COVID-19 be supported by the government. Three, that government makes a weekly contribution of a full tank of fuel for a short period to be determined to bona fide or full-time bus operators to help to offset any shortfall in income. Four, that government encourages the lending institutions to waive late fees and suspend loan payments for a period of 6 months in order to assist bus and taxi operators. Five, that the Ministry of Transport introduces certification of all bus operators. Six, that a new policy be introduced to mandate all passengers to provide the exact payment of the appropriate fare on the basis of their final destination. Seven, that the ministry takes necessary actions to prevent operation of coaster buses and taxis on bus routes, and punitive measures be taken against such actions by the driver of a coaster bus, a guided tour bus, and or a taxi. Eight, that government establish an incentive scheme for bus and taxi operations in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic hardships facing the operators. In conclusion, I wish to therefore posit the view that while the economic impact of COVID-19 is yet to be understood, we have to be careful not to be reckless, beg your pardon, like our predecessors. Neither can we, as a government, allow too much red tape to stymie or hinder the progress of our eventual economy. The projects I advanced earlier will help address the country's infrastructure deficit as well as to create jobs. The COVID-19 pandemic has weighed heavily on the government's finances or revenues, with the $120 million stimulus package announced by our distinguished Prime Minister to help workers as the country experiences several weeks of lockdown, and those monies, I'm told, are increasing. I am comforted by the fact, nevertheless, that we have good leaders at the helm, and at all times, but more particular in these unprecedented times, leadership matters. As I close, I want to also end, though, because as it would be remiss of me if I did not thank the good people of East Basseterre who continue to repose their confidence in me. I wish to implore you that in these unprecedented times, we cannot gamble with the future of our beloved Federation. I want to thank you for your understanding and generosity, because even at this time, you are not selfish in East Basseterre. You continue to lend me as a representative. You continue to lend me to the nation, to the country, to execute all the major national infrastructure and transportation projects, and I say thank you very much. My good friend Terry Adams said to me publicly, "Patches, one good term deserves another." So I ask you for one more term, just like this one. I will once again surrender half. I will surrender 50% of my salary. Many come to you now, and all of a sudden, they give you a bag of food because elections seem imminent. But I have been giving back to you, to my people, for the last 5 years. I will continue to do so in the next term, because I'm guided at all times by Holy Scripture. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1, gives me clear instructions, as it says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." I also love the book of Proverbs, chapter 19 and verse 17, that gives the assurance that kindness to the poor is a loan to the Lord, and he will repay the lender. Let me just, in closing, thank all the entire ministry, the Public Works Department, the SCELEC, the Water Services Department, Postal Services, SCASPER, who have been doing a wonderful job. I thank the media as well, ZIZ, and Win FM, Sugar City FM, and others, who have been doing a wonderful job. I thank all the people for their patience, for their tolerance. We are in this thing together. Remember, leadership matters. In everything, we must have good leadership. I thank you.